is a sector-based employment and advancement program. It's part of New York City's CEO SIF project. WorkAdvance has dual goals: to meet employers' needs for skilled labor while also helping low-income individuals obtain jobs in targeted sectors, succeed in their jobs, and advance in their careers over time. A few interesting findings about the implementation of the program model. Career readiness turned out to be possibly the most important, or at least a very important element of the model. In the WorkAdvance experience, we found that sector-focused programs are not easy to implement part-time. They require a substantial investment of staff time to become experts in the sector, to develop the relationships with employers, and to learn how to be effective advancement coaches.
Beginning in 2008, CEO and SBS partnered to create a number of sector-focused career centers to provide industry-specific job services and training to both unemployed job seekers and incumbent workers looking to advance in their careers. Sector career center participation increases the likelihood of employment stability, and it raises earnings. Groups that face barriers in the labor market all benefit from a sectoral approach. Employment programs really have the potential to reach a larger scale than they are.
The research presented today has shown findings and outcomes for the specific sectors, bricks and mortar centers that we have. And generally speaking, we look at sectors that are anticipating growth. We should look at sectors and have been looking at sectors where there are opportunities for good paying jobs across different skill levels. And so the operating wisdom is that we'll focus on sectors, but what we have to get really smart about is what are the specific interventions or strategies that we have to undertake as a public workforce system in concert with all of the partners to make sure that it is not in fact a cookie cutter approach, but is one that responds to contemporary needs and, as importantly, can evolve.
This is, I think, an inflection point for New York City. You're at a place where you can really build on the results of the evaluation studies and on the city's experience. I want to share just a couple of thoughts based on our network, organizations across the country that do this sector work and policymakers who support it. Really, if we're thinking about the employers and the people of the city of New York, we have to think differently. We have to think that here's a successful strategy. It produces return on investment for taxpayers, for people, and for employers. We know it's proven in that way. It deserves a sufficient amount of resources to support it. And that way, we don't set up a win-lose situation, but instead a win-win situation.
What's been very exciting, kind of wearing the sector hat, is thinking about how to continue to advance people. And so I think this idea of sector work and career pathway work really converging. I think for a while, folks might think that those are synonymous, but I think for us, like, it has really showed us that we have to be very intentional about what we do with folks once they get into that good first sector job, and kind of what are all those needs that employers have and our students have to continue to advance.
This evaluation really lays the groundwork for the work that we've already begun to do to explore new sector strategies and to think critically about not only a sector framework, but how to get the right strategy for each sector. So for instance, our work in tech is going to look very different than our work in construction. And this dialogue today really pushed forward that conversation. One of the things that's important not to overlook in today's event is that while the sector approach sounds now, after years of gathering data, as if it is both obvious and important, the beginning of this work, it was really a risk for CEO to invest with us in this new model, and they deserve the credit for us building upon their work with our Workforce Funders partners to really think about how sector work could be brought to scale here in New York City.
CEO is really inspiring because they are not only focused on data and outcomes, but also the families. And they're doing the hard work of informing all of us stakeholders on what's working and what's not, and what it takes to really help families in their current situations.
Going forward, what's interesting to us is how do we take these results from our successful pilots and really help bring them to scale? How can we use these evaluations findings on these programs to inform the transformation of the whole larger system? And that's our work ahead. How can we bring everyone together, take these really interesting and important findings and use them to improve our system so that low-wage workers get the best quality services they can possibly get from the city?